So yeah, we're sitting here today with Michael Plischke of Communiivate, and you have created a communications platform that is designed to do what? Would you like to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, for sure. So the premise of Communiivate was to build a central network through an online platform that people could utilize to create grassroots movements that connected in a decentralized fashion while using a centralized platform. So you get the best of both worlds where you have multiple movements growing independently that can share resources, share networks, collaborate together and achieve similar or the same goals together across the platform. So in the current MVP version of Communiivate, you have features that allow you to kind of network, work together on projects, and communicate, create posts. It's something of a hybrid between a collaborative platform and a social network.
Okay.
So when I created it, my goal was to essentially have a social network that was all about creating change rather than just passively engaging with it, engaging with what's happening in the world. So
Right. Right. Like a lot of the social media algorithms now, they focus on, whatever's going to rile you up and whatnot. So I had often thought
exactly,
that if Facebook were to do something like actually try to bring people together, they would probably be really successful at it.
I'm
But
sure they would. Yeah,
instead they're doing what they do. So no, I think that's great. And one of the things that we've talked about the Aquarius Collective a lot is just with information being what it is nowadays, you have to question what the truth is, because we get so many lies fed at us. So I think for any movement to be able to take hold and really do something significant, we're going to have one centralized means of communication so that when we get something from there, we know it's the official word. We know it's the truth. We know that's what, is supposed to be happening and taking place. So I think that's one of the biggest things because I was watching a movie the other day, or actually last night. It was called Thrive. And it said that in their research, they found there were close to 1 million different organizations, social justice organizations that were trying to do basically the same kind of thing that we're trying to do. And that's just bring about a new way to be on the planet. So,
hmm
it's happening all over the place. And that's what Aquarius Collective wants to do is be able to go to those places. And our sole mission to be to collect us together. It's like being a shepherd or something, let's just pull us all together. So how long did you have to work on this? Or how long
so
have
for
you been?
Community specifically, that's a platform that like I basically learned how to program from scratch, including like all of the design, front end, back end, whatever.
Wow.
And so I had an initial version, like a very first version of Communivate that's no longer accessible.
Right.
And that was like kind of my first go at it. I brought it to friends, family, connections to kind of just look at, tell me what's wrong with it. That took me about a year. And that was when I was kind of learning on the go. I learned quite a bit. I programmed the first version natively in Android, so I was programming in mostly Java. And so that's the language I learned initially, and I just wanted to simplify my process. So I used Firebase real-time database to just kind of handle most of my back end for me. Um, and then once I did that, I got a lot of feedback from a lot of people saying like this is good, but like this could be better, blah blah blah. So I took all that feedback. I kind of condensed it into what was manageable, and then I spent about another year and a half or so developing like redeveloping Communivate in Android and for iOS natively. So it took me, I'd say like until I was happy with Communivate as an MVP, like a minimum viable product, it took me about 3, maybe 2.5 years or so to kind of get to where I was content with it, willing to share it with people, and
Yeah.
I don't know,
That's what
you
it
know,
gets to. It's really about that getting comfortable sharing it with people. You don't want to stick it out there until you're really ready for people to see it. I can understand that.
exactly, yeah,
So
yeah.
no, I think that's great. What kind of led you to do this kind of work? Just
So let me just think back a little bit. I was in university for engineering,
okay.
and I was that was definitely more along the lines of my passions. Like I really liked doing things with my own hands. I liked
Hmm.
creating and imagining things.
Right.
Um, I had some less than fantastic experiences in the co-op jobs that I signed up for during my time as an engineering student,
Hmm.
and I kind of realized that the world is just a very corporate place, and it's very difficult for someone who's kind of coming from basically nothing to really make any major impact in industry as just an employee. So that on top of like financial concerns about being able to pay for school and I don't know, a few other things here and there, I was kind of just like, you know what, I want to turn a new page, take a new leaf. I feel like I learned a lot from my degree just about really pushing myself, being able to learn better, more efficiently. And
Yeah.
so I was kind of willing to put that to the test and say, hey, I want to do something I've never done before. Like, I really honestly do not like programming. It's not something I enjoy,
Isn't
and
it
I never
wild?
have. And honestly, I was never good at it either, you know? Like, when I was in school, I'm pretty sure I got like a 60% or something in one of my programming classes.
Really?
And so, I mean, it was kind of just like a bit of an act of defiance, you know, where I was
Yeah.
just like, just gonna do it. I'm gonna do it one way or another, and it's gonna happen. And I just decided I saved up about 20 grand or so, and I was living pretty cheap.
Right.
So I just gave myself a couple years to kind of get through that, and then that's kind of how it started, you know.
I think that's great. I think that's great. How many have you got? A lot of people on there now, or is it something you've been pushing very hard, or what's the
No,
development
so
looking like?
yeah, so I think there's about 150 community members on there. I don't know how active it is. Communiivate right now for me isn't something that has been a priority for a while. Like I want to make sure that it's still up and running and that people can still find me on there. People can still use the platform and see the concept,
Right.
but it's much more of a platform for showcasing what I'm moving on to with
Okay.
my new project, Project Solidarity. So
Right.
it's more of just like this is the baseline. This is kind of what I'm trying to create. I'm going to do this, but better.
Okay. I think that's great. What's your time frame looking like on Solidarity, do you think?
The time frame's a bit messy. Like it's really tough when you're kind of outsourcing a lot of the work, which is what I'm doing this time around. Um,
Yeah,
so
this
I
challenge
think,
adds to
yeah,
things a little bit. Yeah.
yeah. So I think we're kind of looking in. It's realistically, it's about another year and a half until release, maybe a little bit less.
Okay.
Um, Ideally less. Like it could be a lot faster. We could have release in 8 months, but it's a little bit uncertain. So I would say given like my approximations, I'd say about a year and a half until we've got a solid version 1.0.
Right. Okay. But I think that from everything I saw with Communiivate, it could be used in the short term, in the near term. Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, that was the goal. And I put a lot of effort into trying to make that work as it is. It was just my biggest issue with Communivate was that it's almost like a bit of a snake eating its tail kind of problem, a catch 22,
Right.
where you need to have people on the platform for other people to want to be on the platform because there's no actual thriving community on the platform yet. And if you have nothing to draw people in to create that kind of community other
Yeah.
than what Communivate stands for, then in most scenarios, like an ordinary person or even someone just kind of casually interested in the idea of Communivate wouldn't just join. And if they do join, they would join for a second, they'd check it out, and they'd be like, "Oh, okay, this isn't very active, so I'm going to leave."
Right.
And so it does, if I were to kind of push a little harder on that, it would require quite a bit more effort from people joining the platform, or at least a very like kind of sudden burst of people joining the platform so that we can kind of light the fire. And I did kind of explore a lot of different ways of doing that, but in the end, I just decided that it wasn't really likely that I was going to achieve what I was looking for with the resources I have.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I got you. And I think that's the biggest thing we need right now because, like, I've been doing a lot on TikTok, and I've noticed. I saw a post today that basically said that it's kind of dying out a little bit. What's happening with everybody? They're not nobody say anything, and I think that's part of it is that people are getting censored. TikTok's taking some of them down that are saying stuff that's too inflammatory and things like that. And plus, you don't know who's watching. You don't know who's looking at what you're saying and this and that and the other. So I think that we're always going to have to stay out there on those social media platforms a little bit to be able basically to recruit and let people know what we're doing. But at the same time, we need one place that we can't allow that to happen. That nobody can just kick us off and say, "Oh, you can't say that. You can't say that." Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. So I think that's real important. We've got a bunch. Well, I could probably get a bunch of people off a Discord server to come and check that out. I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely be interested to see what more people have to say. Like, more input is good. I definitely don't want to feel like, or I don't want to force anyone to join the platform or feel pressured to engage with it.
Right.
I want it to happen organically.
Sure.
And so, for sure, like if people on Discord want to join and they kind of enjoy it and they want to use it kind of more organically and they feel like this is something that they want to stay on, then absolutely, yeah, for sure.
We,
Um,
we can do
that's
that.
that
Then.
would be,
I can go put it out. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
no, it's okay. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Um, I think that might be a good move if you've got the space for your life in it to be able to take a look you know at what people are saying about it and stuff. I don't want to overwhelm you, by any means and get you in some kind of place. But I think I've got at least 4 or 5 people over there on our Discord server that would at least go over there and play around with it a little bit and give some feedback of whether it was something that was viable that we could move forward with and start looking at helping with the development of solidarity. Because
Yeah,
we could always jump in on that and be beta testers or whatever the case might be, or whatever it is you need. This is what this is all supposed to be about. It's just us getting together to collaborate and find out what each other needs and then provide them with that.
yeah, that would be awesome. Like I could always use more input. Um, it sometimes it might be challenging for me to monitor that input and make sure I'm getting
Sure.
back to people and things like that, just with having a busy schedule. But yeah, absolutely. Like if I can have people who are interested and dedicated to kind of helping out the process, like I'm of the mind that the more the better. So
All right, I'll go float that out in some of my circles and see what we can come up with and see if we can get some people over there to start testing it and whatnot. Because you're the only one that I've really run across. I mean, the idea was to find 2 or 3, 4 different platforms and see which one suited us the best. But um, I don't really. I'm not stumbling over platforms, if you know what I mean, that could do this kind of thing. So
mhm.
I know the folks over at the Zeitgeist movement, they had one built at one time that looked very similar to Facebook and was comparable in that same way. Um, but I don't think we can. I don't really trust any of the big ones, to be able to handle what we're doing, and don't think that they're. I just feel like this needs to come from strictly from the people. This needs to come from somebody like you that sat there and had a passion to do this, believed it was the right thing to do, and we did it, and we built together a grassroots thing and built this. That's the way I feel like it needs to happen, and that's just what makes sense, and that's kind of what we're leading to now. So
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to make like people feel comfortable with the platform. Like I am just one semi-ordinary person, like trying to
right,
make a difference. I don't have any ulterior motives. I just like
yep,
I did this whole thing for free and I spent years of my life doing it. So
yep.
um yeah, like I don't know how much more honest I can get about that. So
You know,
it's
it's really funny you say that, Michael, because I can't tell you how many sites that I've been to that were social justice sites at one point that just they're not doing anymore.
really
They've shut down or whatever. There was a big organization. Have you ever heard of David Graeber?
the name sounds familiar.
He's a
Yeah.
historian. He was actually one of the leaders of the Occupy Wall Street movement. He's the one that came
Okay.
up with "We Are the 99%." And God rest his soul, he's passed away now, much earlier than should have been. There was a couple of organizations that he was involved with that looked like they were on the right track and on the right path and had momentum, and now they're, that was 15 years ago, and now they're completely defunct. There's no activity in 7 years. And
Yeah.
so that happened. When I was doing peer support work at the shelters and whatnot, we called it compassion fatigue. You just get to a point where you're like, I just can't anymore. Um,
Yep.
I've given and given and given. So a lot of people, it gets like that sometimes. It'll wear you out just throwing in and throwing in and never getting anything back, or doing that alongside with something else. Like I told you, I think the other night, I've tried to get a nonprofit going for 4 years and still haven't been able to get funding for it. So it's
Yeah.
challenging out there to do the kind of work we do. But something that I really liked was I saw on your website that you talked about how much we could get done with just $10,000. And I look at how much money these people waste on stuff that they do. And I'm like, if they would work efficiently, they could get so much shit done. I mean, the system that we work off of in this world is so inefficient. It's like anti-efficiency, you know? So
Hmm.
it doesn't take much to get us going. That's what I can't get a lot of these people to understand. It's like, look, if you give me $5,000, and that's going to last me 3 months,
Yeah.
of working on nothing but this for 3 months. Imagine what
Hmm.
I could get done without having to stress about money and just being able
Well,
to
it's
work on this for 3 months.
exactly like it just comes down to living expenses, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I want to do this for free. I just need to make sure I can survive.
Right.
So I think a lot of people out there have the same mentality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what creating these platforms is all about. Like if we can bring people together that have that mentality,
Mm-hmm.
and we can even just get small amounts of funding, we can do a lot of damage, in a good way.
Yeah, yeah, we really can. I mean, it doesn't take much, not with the power of the internet and so much stuff that we can do for free out there on that. Um,
Hmm.
so one of the things that I found was interesting was with all these nonprofits that I was looking at, all the money just circulates up at the top. The executive directors are making a lot of money. The money's going to this organization that's doing a study, and it turns out they're old college buddies. So, all the money is just doing what capitalism does, and it's all circulating around up there at the top. Now, I've seen some stuff with Mackenzie Scott. She's kind of bucking the system and going in some different directions and throwing out money at people without any restrictions on it, which very few grantors do. There's usually a bunch of
Hmm.
restrictions and reporting guidelines that you have to abide by when you do that. But she's throwing it out there and just saying, "Here, do what you think is the best thing to do with it." And that's one of the best things that can be done, because then you're not, because some of their provisions make you keep that money circulating up at the top. Like some of these grantors, they'll grant you $10,000 to go get a sustainability plan done for your nonprofit. Think about what that
Hmm.
$10,000 are doing to be able to help people. Instead of
Yeah.
going to pay this lawyer or analyst or whatever $10,000 to write up some papers about how to tell you to survive. It's all
Ridiculous.
self-provided. Yeah, it's just feeding itself. So, but anyway, well, I certainly appreciate you taking the time. Appreciate your contribution to what you're trying to do and everything. We're going to try to support you and back you up from this end and see what we can do to try to build this thing up.
That's awesome. Really appreciate that, Alex.
Man, I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you've done, and we'll be in touch soon, and we'll get this thing up and running somehow or another.
Sounds good.
All right, take care, buddy.
Take care.
See